County Executive Committee to order. Number 2, public comment. Is there any public comment? Any public comment? All right, no public comment. We'll move on to number 3, approval of the November 4th, 2021 Joint Executive and Redistricting Committee meeting minutes. In your packet.
Supervisor Mask.
Supervisor Mask. Supervisor Mask.
Making the motion to approve.
Thank you. We got a motion to have a second from Supervisor Fifrick. Is there any discussion? Any corrections? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to number 4, policy issue for discussion and possible action. There is none. Moving on to number 5, operational functions required by statute, ordinance, or resolution. 5A is opiate settlement approval and authorization of resolution. Resolution is in your packet. This was discussed yesterday at HR Finance and Property and was approved by them. But the request from the chair was that we discuss it and also if we have any questions or concerns. And I think, Mike, are you going to take that? Thank you.
Thank you. The resolution before you is a resolution that proposes authorizing the approval of a settlement that is, I guess, ongoing at this time. If you'll recall, Marathon County engaged previously with several law firms, including Von Briesen and Roper and Krieger Dickinson, to pursue litigation against certain opioid manufacturers. We're part of a large class of local governments who are involved in that litigation. At this point, there is a proposed settlement of the litigation, and that proposed settlement needs to be approved by all or the majority of the members of the class. The terms of the settlement would allow for a distribution of a certain amount of the overall settlement funds to each local government. Your packet identifies the percentage that's coming to Marathon County. The settlement also establishes or requires the county to establish a separate fund into which the settlement funds would go so that they can only be utilized for approved items. The settlement would also handle paying the attorney's fees that were associated with the class action lawsuit. Approval of the resolution would also accompany further approvals of a memorandum of understanding between us and the other local governments, as well as between us and the state of Wisconsin. Those are in draft form, so the resolution that is before you would be to approve finalizing those memorandums. And what those do is they set forth how the funds would be distributed, both between the state and the local governments and between the local or amongst the local governments. I am not personally involved in the litigation, but I can say that I did review the resolution as well as the accompanying documents. They seem appropriately drafted. The consequence of not signing off on the settlement at this time would be that we would then be involved in active litigation against the opioid defendants, so we would have certain deadlines we would need to meet in order to continue that. If enough local governments do not sign off on it, then there would not be a settlement. So I believe the deadline for approval of this is somewhere in early January. So if there's any other questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee?
Chair,
Go ahead.
Supervisor Robinson, we took it up at finance. I think we stand to receive about $3.5 million over 20 years, the less 80%, which is set aside for the legal fees. And there was unanimous support for it.
Okay, thank you. And I believe yesterday at the HR Finance and Properties, it was mentioned, I think, by Chairman Gibbs that this is one of three possible settlements that we are working on. So there may be, more coming, but this is just one of the three. Chairman Gibbs, do you have anything to add to that?
No. There's three different potential groups of litigants, one being the manufacturers, two being the distributors, and then there's another class, and this is just the first of three. This is not potentially not the largest portion, but it's also not the smallest. So it's one of the middle portions. The state of Wisconsin's legislation that was placed that was signed by the governor puts the state of Wisconsin and the 71 of the 72 counties, along with the multiple municipalities that were involved in this litigation, in one of what is, I guess, classified by best place, meaning that the counties, the municipalities that are involved in this litigation are receiving the most. If you remember back when there was litigation on the tobacco settlement, most of that money, and in fact, if not all of that money, went to the state. In this case, these funds are coming more directly to the municipalities involved. In fact, the agreed distribution is 70% of the in the state of Wisconsin, the 72 counties, or excuse me, 71 counties, and the 5 or 6 municipalities, and 30% will go to the state. And there is requirements as to the appropriate use. It's for the use of prevention, treatment, and education all around opioids. Again, the recommendation is highly that we approve this. It will set the stage for the potential 2 additional litigant groups.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion, questions from the committee? No other concerns? Then I would look
Mr.
for.
Chair,
Go ahead.
I was going to move that we recommend approval to the county board.
Got a motion by Supervisor Robinson, second by Supervisor Butke. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to number 6, educational presentation and committee discussion. 6A, as the administrator's 2021 work plan concludes and prepares to develop the 2022 work plan, is there any items the executive committee wants to consider when ranking items for the 2022 work plan?
And I'll be very brief, Mr. Vice Chair. You may have your shortest executive committee meeting in a long time. This is really just to let you know a little bit of foreshadowing here. I will be making a formal presentation and speaking with Chair Gibbs, formal presentation to this body and the full board relative to progress on the work plan at upcoming meetings. This is just, again, foreshadowing. I will go through the past meeting minutes from all of the standing committees to try to identify and make sure I capture within the 2022 work plan, not only the items that will carry over from 2021, those things that are ongoing, but also if there are new items that were highlighted by any of the standing committees, I will work to make sure that those things are reflected in that 2022 document, but I will also I will send out an email to all county board members making a similar request that if they have items that they want to be considered within the work plan, I will include them and then, of course, bring that to this committee in a draft form and in coming meetings for prioritization. But really just, I'm not expecting you to have great discussion here today in terms of add these items or make sure I include these items. If you do have those things you wanted to talk about today, certainly I'll take notes on those things. But you're going to see that informational update on the 2021 work plan progress at your future meeting. And of course, it's that time of year again where we try to put together the calendar, the annual work plan for 2022.
Thank you, Administrator Leonard. Is there any suggestions or ideas that anybody on the committee has now, or we can deal with this at our next meeting? Or if you have, like the Administrator said, if you have any suggestions or ideas that come up, you can email Administrator Leonard. Supervisor Fifrick?
Yeah, just a couple things that come to mind. Facilities planning, specifically with the county highway shop. We've talked about that a number of times within the infrastructure committee and probably my tenure on the board as a whole over the last 6 years, and really trying to make some decisions on that and move that forward, as well as some of the River Drive facilities and what the long-term plan is with that.
Thank you. Anyone else at this time?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
this is Supervisor Robinson again. I think one of the things we need is just coordinating the county's response to the pandemic relief legislation, including the American Rescue Plan dollars, the infrastructure bill, and if the Build Back Better legislation passes, I think we just need to make sure we're maximizing those dollars and opportunities for those dollars.
Thank you. Any other suggestions at this time? All right. I'm sure Administrator Leonard will be busy putting that together, and like I said, if you come up with any suggestions or ideas, you can bring them to the meeting or email Administrator Leonard ahead of time. Then moving on to number 7, next meeting date, time, location, announcements, and future agenda items. Are there any announcements? Any announcements? All right. Committee members are asked to bring ideas for future discussion. And B, executive committee, the next executive committee meeting will be Thursday, January 13th, 2022 at 4 p.m. And
Move to adjourn.
got a motion by Mask. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Butke. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Thank you.